have here is a problem, and it reads, if there are 2.54 centimeters, and here's the abbreviation for centimeters, in 1 inch, how many centimeters are in 360.4 inches? So this is a conversion problem where we are converting from one unit to another. I am going to show you how to do this by writing this problem out. I invite you to follow along. There are a few things we're going to write first that you don't need to write every time you do one of these problems, but we're going to get into that. What we are going to do is we are going to use a little math trick, a math trick that you've known about for a very, very long time. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start writing something that seems to have no relationship to this problem, but it will hopefully make things obvious for you moving forward here. What happens if I multiply 5 times 3 over 3? Well, you've been taught for a very long time that both of these sort of cancel out and you're just left with 5, right? It makes sense. Well, what happens if I do, let's mix in just a tiny bit of algebra, if I do 5 times x over x, what happens now? Well, it doesn't matter, right? It's still the same thing. Both of these x's cancel out, and you're left with 5. So why am I able to do this? I can multiply a number by a ratio as long as everything in that ratio is equal to one another, right? So when I'm looking at this problem, that's exactly what I'm going to do. And I'm going to do that using something I call factor label. You will hear other folks who use this call it dimensional analysis. Some folks even call it the train method or the tooth method. Let's see, I've also heard it as the unit conversion system. It's got a million other names. I prefer factor label. And what we're going to do is we're going to take this problem and we're going to pick something very special out of this problem. To do any factor label, dimensional analysis, whatever you want to call it, you need a conversion factor. So a conversion factor, all right, a conversion factor is something we can always pick out of a problem. Sometimes, however, you're going to be given conversion factors in a problem. You won't even have to read it out of the text, right? It'll just be given to you. Here's the conversion factor. In this problem, it's not given to us, so we have to pick it out. And where it is it is contained in this statement right here. If there are 2.54 centimeters in 1 inch, I can then say that 2.54 centimeters, right, 2.54 centimeters equals 1 inch. And I'm going to use the abbreviations for all that mess, because who wants to write centimeters all the way out and inches all the way out? Nobody. So we're going to use the abbreviation. So that conversion factor is that 2.54 centimeters is 1 inch, equals 1 inch. So if I want to use this using the knowledge I gleaned from right up here, right, I can multiply anything. I'm going to scooch this up just a little bit. I can multiply anything at all, by 2.54 centimeters over 1 inch, or I can multiply something by 1 inch over 2.54 centimeters, because both of these quantities are equal to one another, and that means I'm not really multiplying it by anything, I'm just multiplying it by 1. All right, so what are we going to do with this? We're going to do a little bit of math, and the math that we're going to do, we now need a number, so we've got to have a number to start with. So right here, I'm going to double underline this part right here. That number right there is the number we need to start with. So in any factor label problem, you'll always have the same 3 steps. Step number 1, find the starting number. So let me make that so that is visible. So find the starting number. And in this case, it's really easy. right? The only other number that we have in the problem that we didn't use was 360.4 inches. Now, later on, it's going to get a little more difficult in the semester, and we'll change our rules about what number we're going to start with, and we'll talk about that as it gets more difficult. But right now, really simple. There's only one other number in this problem. Our starting number has to be this number, because we already know these numbers are a conversion factor. That last number has got to be the starting number. So we're going to put in 360.4 inches. And again, I'm going to use the shortcut. So now we are going to draw a line underneath that. And what this line represents is it represents that line in these fractions, right? Or even in these fractions back up here, right? So that line is going to represent these fractions right here. And out at the end, we are going to go and we're going to do step 2. Find your answer units. So we need to figure out what units our answer wants to be in. And it's often easy enough to just go back up to the question and figure out what units our answer is supposed to be in. So when we scroll back up here, it says if there are this many centimeters in 1 inch, how many centimeters? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. How many centimeters? There it is right there. So our units, our answer units, need to be in centimeters. So we're going to go back down here. We're going to translate down to here. Our answer needs to be in centimeters. To make this problem correct, the only thing we have to find is what number goes right there. So to do that, we now need to do step 3, factor. And that factoring problem, we're going to modify these steps so many times, it's not even crazy. It's definitely not funny. And to do that, what we're going to do is sometimes this will be 1 step, sometimes you'll have 10 steps in here. But I'm pretty sure this problem is only going to require 1 step. I know that from experience. But to do a step in fact label, I like to draw a line. Some folks don't like that. Some folks just like to space them out. Some folks, you'll see some teachers will have you draw a multiplication symbol here, whatever. I like the line because it divides my spaces up. And if you're doing a 10-step problem, it's very helpful to have that like that. All right, so now that I know I've got inches on the top, but I need to be in centimeters, what I can do is I can factor out inches. And you know this problem, right? If I have 3.5x and I need to get rid of x, what do? Well, you divide by x. So we're going to put x on the bottom, right? It's the same story right here. I've got inches right here. I don't need inches in my answer, so I'm going to divide by inches by putting inches on the bottom right down here. Now, wouldn't it be convenient if there was some way to make a ratio where I could put inches down here and maybe put centimeters on the top, right? Since I need centimeters in my answer, it's got to wind in here somewhere. And we've already written that. If you look right here, right there, we've got inches on the bottom, centimeters on the top. That's beautiful. So we're going to fill in the rest of that. We're going to put centimeters on the top right up here. And now, if you didn't happen to write this, you can always go back to your conversion factor, and you can see 2.54 centimeters is equal to 1 inch. So you're going to put the numbers in here just like you read it. 2.54 centimeters equals 1 inch. All right, the last thing to do here is to go back and you say, okay, if I have x over x, I cross out those x's. So it's the same story here. If I've got an inch on top and an inch on the bottom, they cancel out. Gone, gone. Inches is gone. The only unit I'm left with over on this side is centimeters. So whenever I do the math problem, whenever I plug this into my calculator, I'm going to get the answer in centimeters. It's a beautiful way to do this. Now, the simplest thing to do here is grab your handy-dandy calculator. Oops. Helps if you grab one that has power. Here we go. One calculator coming up. All right, 6. I don't know what I was doing before. All right, here we go. So you've got, so what you're going to do is you're going to multiply by everything on top. So 360.4 times 2.54, and then there's nothing else on top. And then you divide by each thing on the bottom. So we're going to hit divides by 1 equals, and there's my answer. Usually, when you see this problem, especially on a test question, it'll tell you how many decimal places to give your answer to. This problem did not. So whenever you don't know how many decimal places to round it to, always round it to the second decimal place. So we'll go over to 4-1. The next number is a 6, so we round up that 1. And by the way, the rounding rules haven't changed. 915.42. 2 decimal places. And that's how you do factor label.